Imagine you are standing in your kitchen. It is like 6 in the morning.
Oh, the absolute worst time.
Right. The light is aggressive, you are totally exhausted, and you desperately need caffeine just to, function.
Yeah, actually.
So you press the button on the coffee machine and it just clicks. It literally does nothing. It just sits there, this inanimate plastic box completely mocking you.
I can picture it perfectly.
And suddenly, you don't just feel like mildly annoyed, you actually yell at it. You feel like this machine has personally, deliberately betrayed you in a moment of crisis.
Yeah, you take it completely personally.
Exactly. But like, why do we do this? Why do we assign malicious intent to a kitchen appliance?
Well, it's such a visceral image, right? And it perfectly captures human psychology when we were in a compromised state. I mean, we yell at the plastic box because our internal emotional state has already reached a boiling point before we even walked into the kitchen.
Because we just woke up feeling awful.
Exactly. The logic center of the brain is essentially offline,
Yeah.
and the emotional center is desperately looking for a target to just, absorb that internal chaos.
Wow. Yeah, and that perfectly sets the stage for today's deep dive. So, for you listening right now, you probably already understand the basics of emotional intelligence.
Right. You know the general theories.
Yeah, but what's so fascinating about the stack of notes we are unpacking today is actually where they come from. We're looking at a transcript from an English language learning show called Speak English with Class.
Which, honestly, might seem like a really unusual place to find high-level psychological insights.
It does. But what happens when you strip away the complex PhD level jargon? You get straight to the raw functional mechanics of how anger and frustration actually work.
Yeah, you don't get bogged down in the academic terminology.
Right. By forcing these concepts into accessible vocabulary, it exposes these fundamental truths that we usually just overcomplicate. So our mission for this deep dive is to equip you with this stripped down toolkit of mental models.
A very practical toolkit.
Exactly. We want to show you how to stop your emotions from completely hijacking your day, whether you are, walking into a high-stakes board meeting or just trying to survive a chaotic Tuesday morning.
Because the reality is, um, emotions are fundamentally reactive.
Hmm.
If you don't understand the mechanics of how they operate, they just dictate your behavior before you even realize you've made a choice.
Okay, let's unpack this. There is a brilliant metaphor in these notes. It basically compares our internal state to driving a car.
I love this analogy.
Right. When your long-term goals are driving the car, you get where you need to go. But when your emotions grab the steering wheel,
It's a disaster.
oh, they are terrible drivers. They do not care about the rules of the road. They drive way too fast. They take a wrong turn down a one-way street, and inevitably, they just crash your entire day into a wall.
And neurologically, that is exactly what is happening. Emotions originate in the limbic system,
Hmm.
specifically the amygdala.
Which is like the survival center, right?
Exactly. It's an ancient part of the brain, designed for immediate survival. The amygdala does not care about your 5-year plan. It really doesn't care about your reputation at work either.
It just wants to react.
Yes, it only cares about the next 5 seconds. So when it takes the wheel, it completely bypasses the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that actually understands consequences.
Oh, wow.
That's why an emotion will gladly destroy your entire afternoon just to feel validated for like 10 seconds.
10 seconds of satisfaction for a whole ruined day. So, how do we get from screaming at the coffee maker to actually making steady, composed progress?
It's all about the micro moments.
Right. It starts the absolute second we wake up, right in the middle of those tiny, invisible microstressors. Let's look at a scenario from the source.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, you roll over, you are exhausted, you hit the snooze button, you finally grab your phone, and boom, there is a negative, passive-aggressive message from a coworker right at the top of your notifications.
Oh, I mean, instantly your physiology changes right there.
It really does.
Your body just floods with a microdose of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Yes. And the notes actually describe your motivation running away like a cat.
Just darting out of the room.
Exactly. Your brain immediately starts broadcasting this massive sweeping conclusion like, the whole day is finished. I can't do anything today.
What's fascinating here is how the brain generalizes threat.
How do you mean?
Well, that one text message is a localized problem, right?
Okay.
But cortisol tells your brain that you are under widespread attack. And you have to realize, successful people who actually execute on their goals, they feel this exact same exhaustion and annoyance.
Wait, really? So they aren't just naturally immune to it?
Not at all. You are not broken for feeling lazy or defeated in that moment.
Hmm?
The defining difference isn't the absence of the feeling, it's the mechanical action taken in the next 10 seconds.
Okay.
It's about being essentially relentless.
Relentless, I love that word. And to illustrate it, the material shares this internal battle between two versions of a guy. They call them Old Jake and New Jake.
Right, the Jake scenario.
Yeah, so when Old Jake woke up tired and his brain screamed, "You're too exhausted, just do it tomorrow," Old Jake listened.
And he just gave in.
Totally. He would grab some snacks, scroll through videos for hours, and completely dump all of his adult responsibilities onto Tomorrow Jake.
Which is so common.
It points out how we always expect Tomorrow Jake to be this incredibly strong superhero who can somehow handle double the workload.
Which is the ultimate trap of procrastination.
Right.
Because tomorrow, Jake, is literally just you 24 hours from now.
Exactly.
He is going to be just as tired, but now he is carrying the crushing weight of yesterday's failures on top of today's demands.
Right. But so New Jake approaches it differently. He still has bad days. He still wakes up wanting to do absolutely nothing.
But he doesn't abandon the day.
Exactly. Instead of abandoning the day, he powers through by committing to just 10 minutes of focus. Just 10 minutes of studying or clearing emails.
Just a tiny commitment.
Yeah. And thinking about this, it actually sparked an analogy for me. Letting one bad text message or one tired morning ruin your entire day. It's like a submarine detecting a minor leak in the kitchen and the captain deciding to just open all the airlocks.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it.
You are intentionally sinking the entire vessel instead of just sealing off one compartment.
That is exactly what happens when you let the emotion dictate the action. And if we look at the psychology of that 10-minute commitment Jake makes, it's incredibly clever.
Why is that?
Because doing just 10 minutes isn't about productivity. I mean, you aren't going to finish a massive project in 10 minutes. The point is that you are actually hacking your own neurochemistry.
Okay, color me intrigued.
The brain fears starting a task far more than it fears actually doing the task. So by promising your brain, hey, we're only doing this for 10 minutes, you lower the threat level enough to bypass the amygdala.
So you are basically tricking your brain into starting.
Precisely. You trick it. And once you start, dopamine begins to flow. You send a radically new message to your own brain, which is, I can take action even when my emotional state is low.
You decouple the emotion from the action.
Yes, you break the neural link between feeling bad and doing nothing.
Yeah.
That is the actual mechanism of building self-control.
You are taking the steering wheel back. Okay, but let's escalate this a bit.
Sure.
Say you do your 10 minutes, you power through the morning, but then an unavoidable major part of your day actually goes terribly wrong.
Big.
Yeah, it's not a text message. It's a colossal public failure at work.
Yeah.
How do you stop that massive wave of negativity from infecting everything else?
There's a really powerful visual metaphor in these nights for this exact problem. Think of your day as a house with many different rooms.
Okay, a house.
You have a room for your work, a room for your family, a room for your health, your hobbies, all separate rooms.
And the fundamental rule of the house is if a light bulb shatters in one room, you don't go out into the hallway and lock the doors to all the other rooms.
Right. Why would you ruin the whole house for one bulb? But emotionally, we do this all the time.
We really do.
We let a failure in the workroom convince us that the family room has to be dark and miserable too.
There is a story here about a teacher named Anna to really drive this point home.
Oh, the Anna story is great.
Yeah, she had a morning lesson that was an absolute disaster. The classroom technology completely failed, her students were totally confused, and she just felt like an incompetent beginner.
We've all had those mornings.
Definitely. By lunchtime, all she wanted to do was go home and cry. But instead, she stepped outside, took a walk, took a breath, and consciously decided that her afternoon class was a new room.
And that right there is the essence of true resilience.
Just deciding it's a new room.
Well, resilience doesn't mean you never fall down or that the tech always works flawlessly. It means you fall down, but you allow the day to stand back up.
I like that phrase, allowing the day to stand back up.
You actively compartmentalize the failure so you don't drag the ghost of the morning into the potential of the afternoon.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit. Logically, I mean, the room metaphor makes perfect sense. But chemically?
Right, the physical side.
Yeah. My body is still flooded with stress from that bad meeting. The notes even describe a bad mood as wearing a dirty, wet jacket from place to place.
Which is a very accurate feeling.
So how do I just, take off the wet jacket when my hands are literally still shaking? It feels like we are just telling people to pretend they aren't upset.
This raises an important question, and it is a really crucial distinction to make. Taking off the wet jacket is absolutely not about pretending it's dry. You don't ignore the physiological reality. Your hands might be shaking, and the cortisol is absolutely still in your bloodstream.
Right. You can't just wish that away.
Exactly. But neuroscience tells us that the physiological lifespan of an emotion in the body, like the initial chemical rush, that only lasts about 90 seconds.
Wait, really? Only 90 seconds.
Just 90 seconds. So if you are still feeling the intensity of that anger or shame 20 minutes later, it is because your brain is re-triggering the chemical release by replaying the event over and over.
Oh, so we're keeping it alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Taking off the wet jacket is a deliberate cognitive transition. You are acknowledging that meeting was awful and I feel terrible. But you are actively choosing not to replay the tape as you walk into the family room.
You are refusing to give the emotion fresh fuel.
Exactly.
Which brings us perfectly to the people aspect, because usually that dirty wet jacket is actually put on us by the actions or comments of other people.
Almost always.
The discussion naturally moves into environments where emotions escalate incredibly fast, specifically work and school. And they brilliantly call these places emotional gyms.
It is a fantastic term, emotional gyms.
Yeah.
They are gyms because they provide constant, heavy resistance training for your emotional control. I mean, you are trapped in an arena with other people's entirely unregulated emotions, their biases, and their micro-stressors all day long.
It's exhausting. And when we are sweating it out in those emotional gyms, people usually default to one of two toxic extremes.
Right, the two typical reactions.
The first extreme is exploding in the heat of the moment. This is when the stress is so high that you completely bypass your logical brain and speak purely from the limbic system.
Just pure reaction.
The example in the source is so real. An employee is tired, a coworker makes a tiny, relatively harmless joke about a project, and the employee just snaps.
We've all witnessed that.
They start talking too fast, their pitch goes way up, and they shout, "You never support me!"
And there is a biological reason for that exact reaction. Under extreme stress, the sympathetic nervous system activates the fight-or-flight response.
So your body is physically changing.
Completely. Your vocal cords actually tighten, which makes your voice higher. Your breathing becomes shallow, which makes you talk faster. Your body is physically preparing for a physical fight, but you are just, standing in a conference room.
Wow, exactly. And then there's the second extreme, which the notes point out is equally destructive, bottling up your feelings.
Yes. The silent extreme.
This is when you shove the emotion down and just paint a fake smile on your face. The notes highlight an employee who has a boss saying small, hurtful things to them.
And what do?
Instead of addressing it, the employee just smiles, says thank you, and swallows the anger entirely.
They just absorb it all.
They do this for months, push it down, until one day the pressure is too much and they are crying in the office bathroom, ready to quit their job over something seemingly tiny that was just the final straw.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, both of these extremes carry a massive biological and professional cost.
Oh, absolutely.
Exploding obviously damages your relationships immediately, but bottling it up creates what psychologists call allostatic load.
Allostatic load.
Yes. It's chronic, compounding wear and tear on your body. The body keeps the score, as they say.
Yeah.
Pushing it down inevitably leads to a breakdown. So the healthy middle ground between these two is staying composed.
Composed. And they define this beautifully in the transcript. Composed does not mean you feel nothing.
Not at all.
You might have a heart that is literally tap dancing in your chest. Your hands might be sweating under the desk, but on the outside, you are steady.
It's the absolute separation of the internal experience from the external reaction. You are experiencing the stress, but you are not authorizing the stress to dictate your behavior.
And to actually achieve that composure, there is this incredibly practical 5-second trick they mentioned.
This is a great tool.
When you feel that rush of emotion, that blinding urge to either scream or completely shut down, you force yourself to take one slow breath, just 5 seconds, and you say, "Can we talk about this after the break?"
That's it.
That's it.
The mechanics of why this works are fascinating. By forcing a slow 5-second breath, you are mechanically forcing your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brake pedal for your stress response, to engage.
You are manually hitting the brakes.
Yes. You are physically lowering your heart rate just enough to allow your prefrontal cortex, the logical executive, to catch up to the screaming amygdala.
Right.
Asking for a delay doesn't ignore the feeling. It just puts a pause button on the reaction until the adult is back in the room, so to speak.
Okay. So that 5-second trick is an absolute lifesaver for immediate face-to-face reactions. But what about the slow burn?
The slow burn.
Yeah, what about the heavy, long-term emotional weight of other people's judgments and opinions? Because taking a deep breath doesn't solve a toxic office culture.
No, it doesn't.
So how do we stop the fear of external judgment from just paralyzing the choices we make for our own lives?
This is where we get into the concept of stereotypes from the source material. Stereotypes are essentially the restrictive boxes that other people try to force you into based on their own, limited understanding.
Like the quiet person who supposedly can't be a strong leader.
Exactly. Or the playful, creative teacher who won't be respected by the strict administration.
Right. Or, highly relevant to the language learning context of these notes, the idea that if you make grammatical mistakes when you speak English, you must not be intelligent.
Which is completely false.
Yeah.
But the warning here is stark. If you start believing those unfair ideas, you actually start living inside them.
Yeah, the stereotype becomes a literal cramped room that you lock yourself in.
Exactly. You stop raising your hand, you stop pitching ideas, you stop pursuing your goals because you are terrified of stepping outside that box.
It's self-sabotage.
It is. So to combat this, you have to actively grow a thick skin and rise above it.
Well, what does growing a thick skin actually look like?
Well, growing a thick skin doesn't mean becoming an unfeeling cyborg. If a stranger online leaves a brutal comment, you are going to feel it. You feel the ouch. Thick skin means you feel the ouch, you metabolize the pain, and then you remind yourself of your core mission, and you keep going anyway.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. These notes connect managing those external judgments directly to the concept of being decisive.
Yes, decision-making.
When you care too much about what everyone else thinks, you just bounce around, you change your strategy every 2 days.
You lack focus.
Right, because you are letting a committee of everyone else's unregulated emotions dictate your path. So to fix this, they introduce what is probably the most powerful tool we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
Separating feeling time from decision time.
This is a masterful technique for high-level emotional regulation. Let's break down the mechanics of how you actually do this.
Okay.
First, you explicitly schedule your feeling time. You physically get a notebook and you write down every single fear, doubt, and irrational insecurity you have.
Like, I am terrified of this new project, or I'm worried my boss thinks I'm incompetent.
Exactly. I feel like a fraud. You give the emotions a dedicated physical space to be as loud and messy as they want.
You literally extract it from your brain and trap it on the paper so it stops echoing in your head.
Precisely. And neurologically, the act of writing forces you to translate raw limbic emotion into language.
Oh, so it moves the processing.
Yes, it moves the processing from the emotional center into the language and logic centers of the brain. You are actively cooling the emotion down just by writing it out.
Wow.
And then you pivot.
You literally close the notebook on feeling time.
Yes. And you open decision time. This is where you look strictly at the data. What are the actual facts? What is the tangible risk versus the potential reward? What resources do I actually have right now?
I love the way this is framed. You give your emotions space to be heard, but you absolutely do not let them vote 5 times on the final decision.
They don't run the show.
Right. It's like they get to speak at the town hall, but they don't get to run the election.
That is the perfect analogy. You validate the emotion without surrendering your authority to it. You are essentially stepping into the role of a CEO.
Okay, CEO of your brain.
Exactly. A good executive listens carefully to the concerns of their staff, which in this case are your emotions. But the executive ultimately makes the final decision based on the strategic data and the long-term goals of the company.
That makes so much sense. So, to bring this entire deep dive full circle, let's look back at that opening metaphor of the car.
Yes, the driving metaphor.
We started with the sheer danger of letting your emotions drive the car, speeding through red lights and crashing into the coffee machine at 6 in the morning.
A terrible start to the day.
But the goal of everything we've explored today, the 10-minute micro habits, compartmentalizing the bad rooms, deploying that 5-second pause in the emotional gym, and separating feeling from decision-making, the goal isn't to kick your emotions out of the car completely.
No, absolutely not. Because total emotional suppression is not only impossible, it is incredibly damaging to your nervous system.
Right.
Emotional control does not mean becoming a cold, unfeeling robot.
Right. It means your goals, your values, and your long-term visions are sitting in the driver's seat. They have both hands firmly on the steering wheel.
Exactly.
And your emotions. They are still in the car. They are sitting right there in the passenger seat with you. You can hear them, you can validate them, but they are safely strapped in with a seatbelt.
Along for the ride.
Yes. They are along for the ride, but they are absolutely not fighting you for control of the vehicle.
And that really should be the most reassuring takeaway for you listening right now. You're human.
Definitely.
You are not broken because you get frustrated or exhausted or deeply hurt by a passing comment. You are not, quote unquote, too emotional.
It's just part of being alive.
Exactly. Experiencing those intense feelings is just the reality of the human operating system. The objective is simply to build the mechanical tools to power through those moments, maintain your external composure, and consistently show up for yourself, regardless of the severe weather happening in your own head.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We've deconstructed the neurology of procrastination, we've figured out how to seal off the flooded compartments of a bad day, and we've given you the exact blueprint for putting a mental seatbelt on your reaction.
A very full toolkit.
But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Okay.
If we are actively putting a seatbelt on our emotions today to keep them from crashing the car, how might mapping out your specific recurring emotional triggers in advance act as the GPS for your goals tomorrow?
Well, that's a great question.
Think about it. If you map out the exact potholes that always make you want to veer off the road before you ever start driving, you can navigate the journey with a whole new level of absolute mastery. Keep your goals in the driver's seat, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.